Sometime later, Jesus and his followers came to Jerusalem, and they stayed there for a while. Now, every day Jesus was in the temple teaching the people, and the crowds loved him. They hung on every word he said. But the religious leaders did not like Jesus. They wanted to get rid of him, to kill him. But they didn't really know how to, because the people loved him so much. So they waited for an opportunity to get rid of Jesus quietly. Now one day, Jesus and his followers went outside of Jerusalem to a garden of olive trees in order to pray. And while they were there, a mob came, arrested Jesus, and took him back to Jerusalem. Now in Jerusalem, the head of the religious leaders had called together the religious council in his house. And Jesus was brought to his house before this council. They questioned him and brought accusations against him. But they could not find witnesses to bring accusations against Jesus. They could not even find two witnesses to tell the same lie, so they would be able to punish Jesus. They did find two people who came and said, "We heard this man say he could tear down the temple and rebuild it in 3 days." Now the head of the council turned to Jesus and said, "Don't you want to say something? You're hearing all of these accusations against yourself. Isn't there anything you want to say?" But Jesus did not respond. He remained completely silent. And the head of the council said to him, "I demand in the name of the living God, tell us whether or not you are the promised king." Jesus answered, "Yes, it is as you say. And you will see me seated at the right hand of God, on the seat of power, and coming with the clouds of heaven." When the head of the council heard this, he tore his robes in disgust, and he turned to the people who were there and said, "We need nothing more. This man has condemned himself. What shall we do with him?" And they cried out, "Kill him! Execute him! This man deserves to die." Now it was evening, so they kept Jesus for the night and reconvened the next morning in order to decide how best to kill Jesus. When they met again, they decided that it would be best to get the Romans to do this. Now maybe you remember that the Romans occupied the country. They had the political power. And so they took Jesus and brought him to a man named Pilate, the Roman governor of this area. And they said to Pilate, "This man is causing a lot of trouble. He even claims to be a king." And so Pilate asked Jesus, "Are you the king of these people?" And Jesus said, "Yes, it is as you say." And the religious leaders kept on bringing accusations against Jesus. Pilate listened to them all and then said, "I can find no fault with this man. I will release him and let him go." But the religious leaders had stirred up the crowd, and they would not let Pilate do this. Instead, they cried out, "Kill him! Execute him! This man deserves to die." Now Pilate had a custom. Once a year he would release a prisoner to the people. And in prison he had a man named Barabbas who had led a rebellion and done other bad things. Pilate knew that the people loved Jesus, and that the religious leaders were acting out of jealousy. So he figured that the people would choose to have Jesus released. He brought before his crowd Barabbas and Jesus, and he asked the people, "Who shall I release for you?" Now the crowd had been stirred up so much that they answered, "Barabbas! Give us Barabbas! We want Barabbas!" And Pilate asked them, "And what shall I do with Jesus?" The crowd cried out, "Kill him! Execute him! Nail him to a cross! Kill him!" Finally, Pilate gave in. He ordered that Jesus be whipped and led out to be executed and nailed on a cross.